Vernon Howard was an extraordinary teacher of metaphysics, of esoteric Christianity. Sometimes it's called the negative way, how the Indians say, neti neti, not this, not that. He focused one's attention on the false self or the ego and seldom spoke of the qualities or characteristics of the true self. I assume that this was done so we would get the fact that the true self is not intellectual or mental. Now, he did say that inner work begins on the physical level. In other words, be practical. We have to take spiritual teachings into our head. We have to use the mental level. But the physical and the mental, are just instruments. The emotions are where the battlefield, the civil war within, takes place. Because once you begin to focus on your emotional life, you'll see it's seriously out of whack. The ego can only be unhappy. It thrives on pain and suffering. Not conscious pain and suffering, but mechanical pain and suffering. Jesus died conscious. He was an awakened being, like the Buddha. The way, the true way, begins here in the heart. And the heart is broken by the world. Christ made many references to this broken heart when he would say things like, "My kingdom is not of this world. In my Father's house there are many mansions." He talked about food. "I have meat to eat ye know not of. I am the bread of life." The I am being the conscious heart, the heart awake, the being made whole. Now, the way Vernon Howard went about it, he got students to come into a lecture hall. They were holding meetings in a church back in the late 80s when I made my first visit. We sat in folding chairs, and Vernon sat at a beat-up old desk and had a little lapel mic clip to his shirt. And he thundered and roared at us for 45 minutes with no let-up. I was so frightened it took me a year before I went back to Boulder City, which is where he was teaching. But I was on fire inwardly for his message. He let me know somehow that the only hope I had was to wake up. And to wake up, you have to know that you're asleep. We really are sound asleep. He would say things like, "The only difference in sleeping people is how they snore." He was funny, but above all, he was capable of stripping the ego down to where you were just reduced to jelly. Somebody said, "Well, why aren't we nicer to people?" And he said, if we were nicer to people, this would be just like Sunday school. And we all know what Sunday school is like. You know, it's like you have to sit there and listen to the big people tell you what's what. And you know in your heart that they're wrong, that there's something else. And a true teacher comes to awaken that something else within you. I got in under the wire, as Vernon's secretary told me. I was with him for 7 years. 7 being a very mystical number. I had just lost my daughter at the age of 7. I think I went to meet Vernon. Maybe she'd been gone 4 years, but it was like it just happened, and I was still broken. But at his school, one thing was unmistakable. It was so hard to be in his presence that you only focused on the immediacy of your suffering. A true teacher will do that for you. They will put you in touch with your suffering. There's no escape. There is no escape. He said he seldom used words like joy because we didn't know what the heck that was. And he was right. Some of us demand a strict teacher and heaven answers and sends us the teacher that we need. And to this day, I continue to sprinkle Vernon Howard's teachings throughout my writing. And people still visit my blog when they're Googling Vernon Howard, because I have little bits and pieces about him. And I do carry Vernon's energy, and Vernon's energy is a very no-nonsense approach to life. So that's it. If you want the pure truth, expect to buckle your seatbelt, because it's going to be a very, very bumpy ride, but you'll get there eventually. You'll get to that place that you never left, and you'll know real joy. Just don't use that word, or you wouldn't have used that word around Vernon, because he would quickly turn you back on yourself, as if to say, no, you have more work to do before you know what real joy is.